Going on YouTube, Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be talking about Tornadus in the sense of that it is dropping in usage along with its partner Dragonite, one of its partners anyway. So, for a while, Dragonite, Tornadus, and Shenpao, and then you can even add Urshifu in that sense. These were, oh, that's the dark one, I meant the water one. These were the premier four, at the beginning of the format, right? Just because of the amount of pressure they can put on, a bunch of priority moves that they both exert, all three of them exert, might I add. And then you couple all three of them with the fact that you can get speed control with Tailwind, from the Tornadus, of course, just makes everything relatively fast and hard hitting, right? And for a while, they've been doing relatively well, and they still are to an extent, but it turns out that the Tornadus, right, along with its partner Dragonite, are actually dropping in usage, and we're going to talk about why that is so in today's video. And the reason why we came with this conclusion is not only just like from looking at tournament results, but also data, like just literally raw data that was compiled for us, just so that we can get a graphic, so that way we can show you guys and create a video, right? So first of all, I'm going to show you a Twitter page, right, from VGCData, right? And if you don't follow them, you should definitely consider following them, because they're the ones who have put all of these numbers together. And what they've been able to do, at least on their site, is be able to compile competitive data, so this way we can get insights and conclusions, and then just formulate our own ideas, based on the current meta that we see fit at the given moment, right? So they've released, July 25th usage data and usage stats, and then what we're going to do is look at this along with a comparison of where we were at just about 2 weeks ago from July 9th, okay? So we're gonna show both graphics back and back just to see, who are like within the top 15, what are some of their popular, Terra options, right? Because, Pikalytics is another good website for, just looking at usage data, of course, along with, suggested EV spreads, partner choices, items, but they don't necessarily tell you like, the Terra stuff. And sometimes the Terra stuff is actually also a useful part of the data, and I'm surprised that Pikalytics doesn't quite have that just yet, but VGCData does. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at July 9th first, and then compare it with July 25th, make some conclusions, and note where Tornadus and Dragonite are within both of these graphics. Okay, so let's look at this list here. So basically, they've been able to give us, I believe, the top 15 usage. This is from July 9th, might I add, right? So Fluttermane and Urshifu were at the time the 1 and 2, and that's still true, and that's probably going to be true, until the end of Regulation D. I don't see this changing anytime soon. And then look at this, Tornadus at 3rd place. All right, and by the way, this data is combined usage rate from the last big few tournaments, right? And when we say tournaments, they're talking about 60 plus players, right? So that's how a lot of this data was compiled. All right, so just take that with a grain of salt. This is not including like ranked ladder play or whatnot. This is strictly going by tournament usage. Okay, so just take that with a grain of salt. And again, I will link this in the video description below, so you can also take a look at VGCData yourselves. All right, so from the biggest limitless tours thus far, we are able to access the data here. So note the Tornadus here at 3rd place, and then also note Dragonite at 7th place over here, right? So all within the top 10. Okay, then from here you have some more obvious options, of course, with Amoonguss, Iron Hands, Heatran, of course, Landorus. Somebody said in one of my, when I gave a list of top 10 mons, somebody questioned why I had Landorus in the top 10, and it's a good mon. There's no question about it, right? It just does a lot for a lot of different teams. And then here's Goldango, Crest, Ursaluna, of course. Then here's Rillaboom here. Note where the Rillaboom placement is at this moment, right? Because this is something that's also going to change within the data, and we'll talk about why that was so. All right, and then here's Indeedee, and there's Chiyu, good partner with Fluttermane, of course. And then there's the Dark Urshifu, right? Which is quite good into like Ursaluna stuff, right? And then here's the Hisuian Arcanine, right? So another Intimidator. Managing to sneak in there. Okay, now this is July 9th, okay, and like I said, note where some of these options are, and then over here you might see all these type things. This is all their popular Terra choices, right? So over here you can see, for example, Fluttermane, the most popular was at 72% Terra Fairy, okay, which is reasonable, right? It's gonna help it do more damage. It's gonna remove the ghost weakness, of course. All right, so it's very, very nice. And then over here, you'll get the occasional Terra Water at 18%. And again, July 9th, right? So this is also pretty good against like, Urshifu Surging Strikes for that matter, right? And then speaking of Urshifu, here, of course, 81%, a whopping Terra Water, more damage, able to pick up a lot more KOs. And then you had the occasional 11% Terra Grass here, just to, it's a defensive Terra, get around Amoonguss, okay? And then from there, the very, very seldomly used Terra Poison, resistance against Flutter Mane, or other fairy type attacks, right? So, just looking at, these Terra options are also like just a good sense of what should I do with my Terra type, with my Pokemon, right? And here's the Heatran, of course, 90% Terra Grass, right? And then you had the few that were going with like Terra, the Terra Bug, 2% over there. That was me, by the way. I definitely did Heatran Terra Bug. It was great into the mirror at the given time, when we made our Heatran squad. But yeah, enough about this. So now you know how this works. So let's look at the July 25th usage. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the July 25th data, right? By the way, sorry about that, a moment ago. I was undergoing a bout with the hiccups. So that's also why I had to pause the video there. So this way I could, cease it and then start again. So that being said, here we go. So again, like we mentioned, Flutter Mane and Urshifu are again 1 and 2. But look at this. Where is the Tornadus? It actually dropped all the way down here. Now, it's technically still in 8th place, so that's like, still in the top 10, right? And when we say dropping in usage, right, that does not mean, irrelevant, okay? It's still good, it's still relevant. It's just not as high as it once was, right? That's like saying, you got a 99 on a math test, right? And then you dropped in your grade down to a 90. Like a 90 is still good, okay? It's just not as high as a 99, okay? But then if you also look at where Dragonite is, right? Remember, where was Dragonite? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Was in 7th place just 2 weeks ago. Now, dropping outside of the top 10 all the way down to, I believe, 13th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th, right? So that's a little bit more of a bigger drop, right? So, we're going to talk about why that is so. But, just again, looking at also the rise of, a couple of other things, right? First of all, Rillaboom all the way into the top 5, right? With it 4th place right here. No, actually that's 5th place, right? It's within the top 5. Where was it originally? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's basically almost switching places with Dragonite, right? So Rillaboom rose all the way to the top 5. It was originally outside of the top 10. Dragonite dropped, right? And so did Tornadus. Tornadus also dropped, right? And then now the question begs as to like why that is so, okay? Well, let's take a look at some recent tournament data and let's see if we can actually see this, with the data being true as to, if this is actually the case. So let's look at a recent Nino Pokebros tournament, right? And here's a prime example. Let's look at Olsen's team, right? So he got 3rd place here, 10-2 record, excellent finish. Shout outs to the homie Olsen. He was a guest on our channel back in the Sword and Shield days. Maybe it might be time to bring him back and feature this squad if he's willing to do so. But again, here's a very, very classic example, right? You have Chien-Pao, you have Dragonite, you have Urshifu. Where is the Tornadus? Olsen says, listen, I follow VGC data. I understood the numbers, and the numbers said Tornadus was falling out of favor while Rillaboom was on the rise, and that is exactly what I have to do. I am going to add Rillaboom because the data tells me to. No, but if you would just consider like what Rillaboom can do as opposed to like what Tornadus has trouble with, the part of it is also, those Farigiraf teams are rising, right? And the Tornadus, along with these 3 priority Pokemon, weren't really doing much to the Farigiraf. Farigiraf was taking away one of its strongest weapons, right? The priority moves, right? The hard-hitting priority moves, right? Rillaboom kind of alleviates that a little bit, okay? Now, again, it's still taking away Fake Out for sure, but, Rillaboom also just helps you into, like, some of those Trick Room games just in general, right? Farigiraf aside, you get Fake Out on the team, right? Which is something that Tornadus wasn't really giving you, okay? And then at the same time, you get something for, like, the Urshifu itself, right? Because, besides the Flutter Mane and Aerial Ace here, you need a little bit more sometimes. So you get something for the Rillaboom, you get something for the Ursaluna, okay? And then at the same time, you get resistance against the Urshifu, right? Because none of these things can technically resist the Urshifu unless you swap into, like, for example, Dragonite, but most times it's going to be Terra Normal, right? Clicking E-Speed, and oh, Giga Impact is a great tech move here. I like this move. you know, you don't always have to click E-Speed, right? And then you can just simply click Giga Impact, which doesn't really care about your priority denying ability. You know, thank you, Fergaraf. We're just going to click Giga Impact and, you know, just kind of relax there. But then, again, now you also get a pivot move with U-Turn. Okay, so now you can also reposition, which is something that Tornadus can't really do. And then at the same time, now you also get access to a ground move here with Stomping Tantrum, which, you know, is missing on this team, you know, from the other 5. So now Stomping Tantrum is really good. Give it something to click against the opposing Heatran if it doesn't Terra, something against Iron Hands, you know, other steel types like Goldango for that matter, where maybe sometimes you can't really use your Flutter Mane in certain scenarios. So, you know, Rillaboom is a great balanced Pokemon that can give you that Fire, Water, Grass core especially, right? Rillaboom, Heatran, Urshifu. This is a very, very premier Fire, Water, Grass core right now. We talked about this weeks ago in our building video, so thankfully Olsen watched that video and he says, thank you, Clover, for that insight. But, you know, you ever want to do is like start some team building, you just start with these 3, Heatran, Rillaboom, and Urshifu, right? So, you know, in exchange, do you miss the Tailwind? No, of course not, right? Because again, you have 1, 2, 3 priority moves, right? Then you have Fake Out, and then Substitute on the Heatran is able to stall out those those Trick Room teams, right? So you have that going for you, and you get Fake Out, which can also help you stall those Trick Room teams. And at the same time, what Rillaboom can also do against those Indeedee Trick Room teams is basically take away Indeedee's terrain, because you can swap out the Rillaboom, remove the Psychic terrain, you can click your priority moves again, and then you can also click Fake Out to be able to, you know, stall another turn of Trick Room. Because Chien-Pao does not have Ice Spinner on this team, you have Ice Skull Crash, right? Because otherwise you're going to blow up your own Rillaboom's terrain, so you have to find a way around it. So this was the workaround. You go with Ice Skull Crash instead, but you still need a way to remove Indeedee's terrain. You can't just say, well, there's Psychic terrain, I can't do anything now. No, this is why Rillaboom came onto a team like this, right? So shout out to Olsen for making that change, and I'm sure it was responsible for all the reasons I discussed for this 10-2 result, right? Then if we take a look at another tour, just for a little bit more evidence, okay, actually before we even look at that tour, let's just take a look in general. How many Tornaduses or like how many Tornadus Dragonite teams do we see, right? So of course here's Olsen, no Tornadus here. And then like just looking at Dragonite, like 1 here, there's 1 here. Basically in the top 16, there were only 2 Dragonites, right? And then how many Tornaduses were there? Right, there's 1 here, 1 here, okay. 1 here, 1 here, 4. Okay, so there's 4 Tornadus within, what is this, top 16? Okay, then you go down a little bit, 4, 5, all right, so a little bit more. So still, again, it's still a good mon, right? Like we said, it's still in 8th place, but like 2 Dragonites, man. That says something, right? That says something. And then as you keep going down here, let's go into like, let's say top 32, because 5-3 records are still relatively nice. Like, I'm looking for some of these Dragonite teams, and, you know, here's another one. All right, so this one's still, like, going with the classic build with, like, Tornadus here. There's no Rillaboom. There's an Amoonguss here instead. No Heatran. But, look, man, I'm not finding any. You can see that, right? Oh, here we go. Here's a Olsen looking like team over here. But that's really it. Look, I'm dropping down to the 40s. Oh, right, there's another one there. But it's dropping, okay? And, you know, we know why, all right? And then if we just take a look at the data, right? What this site is also able to do is just show you like different combinations, right? So let's look at July 9th one more time. This is what these cores looked like back then. Look at this, right? Tornadus, Urshifu, Chien-Pao, Flutter Mane, Iron Hands, Dragonite. This was like the Jalen core, the Jalen idea. Then you go for like 5-man cores like this, okay? 5-man cores, Torn, Ursh, Chien-Pao, Dragonite, slap on a Flutter Mane, right? 16 of those tournament squads were, you know, featuring this idea, right? Then you start getting a little more creative. You still feature the same 4, just remove Tornadus and add a Heatran, right? And I'm not surprised if Heatran didn't even come to this one here. It's very easily slapped on. But then over here, here you forgo the Dragonite, but you add the Iron Hand. So like some variants of this 6-man core, just like maybe you add Heatran here and take something out, right? But this is what the 6-man cores and the 5-man cores looked like as of 2 weeks ago, right? From the Tailwind offense stuff, okay? Then if you look at some of the 4-mans, right? More or less the same idea, right? You know, the occasional Amoonguss, okay? And then at the same time, the occasional Iron Hands would give you that variance, right? without a doubt. That's why I like this website too. Okay, but then you look at 2 weeks now, which is basically July 25th. And let's look at how these 6-man cores changed. Oh my goodness, look at the variants, right? Look at the rise in the Trick Room teams, right? You didn't see any Cresselia squads. Now all of a sudden they're popping up like crazy. Crest, Ursa Luna teams, along with, Heatran and Iron Hands are very, very good cores here. And there was not a lot that some of those hyper-offensive teams could really do so much against them. The terrain was taking away a lot of what they can do. And then, Trick Room is always just detrimental to stuff like Flutter Mane and whatnot. So let's add the Rillaboom. Let's remove the terrain so this way we get our weapon back. We can get our priority moves back. We can forgo the Tornadus because if you think about it, look, we've got Flutter Mane, we've got Chien-Pao, okay? And at the same time, we also have like, the priority moves. Flutter Mane and Chien-Pao, they're two of the fastest mons anyway. They don't need Tailwind, right? You're faster than all these Trick Room teams. Regardless, you just need to make sure you can get your priority moves back. Okay, so that's the whole idea there. And then of course the Dondozo teams are also coming back. Like we knew this was coming, right? And then just take a look at this. Look, all right, you still get Heatran, Ursh, Rillaboom with Dragonite, Chien-Pao there. That hasn't changed, right? And then you just slap on Flutter Mane to something like this, right? And then of course Iron Hands, Crest, Ursa Luna teams. We already discussed those. But now you can also see some stuff like this where like Landorus is actually taking the place of Dragonite sometimes, right? Another flying type that can now also give you Intimidate to your team. And there's good synergy with Landorus and Flutter Mane, right? Because Flutter Mane being weak to, the steel types, right? And Landorus can really pressure those. And then at the same time, you get Intimidate, which can like drop attacks. And Flutter Mane, being physically frail, can now actually survive some of those hits now because you have access to Intimidate on your team, which is something Dragonite didn't really give you, okay? You still get ground immunity, of course, which is always very, very nice. And now you also get electric immunity against the Iron Hands, which is also pretty good as well. You're almost forcing them to Terra into like Terra Grass, but then you can always just punish that if you have, Terra Blast, Terra Flying for that instance, right? So I like Landorus a lot. And again, it also pressures Heatran a little bit more, because Heatran and some of those Trick Room teams also gave some of those Tailwind hyper offensive teams a little bit of an issue, right? So Landorus can also pressure those Heatrans as well. So again, big difference than what we saw 2 weeks ago, right? So Rillaboom, Fake Out is really, really good on teams like this, and then you get a little bit of recovery for your team, which is something that Tornadus, along with Dragonite, we're not really giving you at the same time. And again, remember, you lost Grassy Glide. Right, the fact that you lost Grassy Glide and you're this good just shows you how good it was in Sword and Shield, right? Alekis did not live to tell the tale, in front of a Rillaboom. There was no terrestrialization. Okay, you had to switch it or force your Dynamax to try and live that Grassy Glide. But I digress from the goal here, right? So now if we just take a look at this tournament here, the Are You Tinka Tough Enough, right? So look at this. Now you're seeing, in first place here from Jonzu, our homie, Jonathan Zuniga, is going to Japan, by the way. Here it is. Here's the Dragapult Chien-Pao idea, right? There's the Firewater Grass Card, Rillaboom, Urshifu, and Heatran, and there's Flutter Mane here, right? And here's the substitute Heatran. No Tornadus needed. You are Dragapult. You are the fastest thing in the format, not named Regieleki, which is not even around that much. Okay, so you're outspeeding all these Flutter Manes and Chien-Paos anyway. Okay, so you don't need Tailwind. Okay, you have everything you need, and then you just have your priority boys, right? So makes a lot of sense here. And then again, if we go down here to Michael's team, right? Now you have the Furgraph, okay? So you don't need Tornadus anymore either. You can just, have that anti-Trick Room counter, right? Along with your Rillaboom, to really help you out there. And then the fast offense is coming from the Dragapult and the Chien-Pao, and Urshifu, Heatran come in specific matchups, right? So again, where's the Tornadus? Do you see any? I don't even see a single Tornadus within the top 8. When was this tournament? I think last night. Yeah, July 27th. This is last night. Okay, the only Tornadus you're gonna see are the ones that are the teams that really need it. The Regidrago teams, right? So as I scroll down, look for non-Regidrago teams, and let's see how many Tornaduses you can find here. All right, here's one. Here's Dragonite Torn. All right, from Claudio 4-1. All right, anywhere else? Okay, here's one here with Landorus. Okay, sure. But here's a couple more. But again, this is with Regidrago, right? So that doesn't count. They need that. And then as I keep going, more Regidrago teams that need Tornadus. But other than that, not a whole lot. Here's another double Genie one. But again, it's still used a little bit, but it's dropping, right? It's not where it once was 2 weeks ago. Okay, so hopefully I'm able to point this out for you and just give you some ideas as to like, you don't have to force Tornadus on these teams anymore, right? In fact, you might be better without it and just going with a little bit more of a balanced idea by adding the Rillaboom there, and then that gives you a little bit more of a better matchup into some of these other teams, right? Because Tornadus, yes, it can give you Tailwind, but other than that, Bleak Wind Storm is a good move, but first of all, it has to hit. Second of all, it's a spread move, so it's not really going to pick up like any huge KOs. And then Taunt, you can taunt Amoonguss, you can taunt Goodra, of course. So there's value in that. But, if there's a Farigiraf on the other side, you're not clicking that. So, some of your best tools are being taken away by just being in front of a Farigiraf. So you need a way to deal with that, right? And Rillaboom can help you there. It can give you U-turn, which is super effective against a Farigiraf, of course. And then, other than that, just good repositioning Pokemon overall, right? So hopefully I was able to enlighten you there. And again, just study the data, right? And let's see what some of this usage looks like in another 2 weeks, right? Just in time for Worlds. So I'm very curious as to that because there's still some time left, right? Just about another 2 weeks, right? So we'll see what it looks like. But let me know what you think of the rise and the fall of Tornadus, Dragonite, and Rillaboom going up through the roof in usage there. All right, hopefully we've opened your eyes a little bit and gave you some ideas for your team building. And speaking of team building, if you are interested in building with me on the channel, again, that's a tier 3 sub. So take a look at that perk. It's in the video description. There's a link to join the channel with that tier 3 sub. And then at the same time in the comment section, we have the same link. It's a pinned comment, to join the channel with the tier 3 sub. We've been giving a lot of teams for people to enter into tournaments. They've done well. They've topped. They've been also winning some tournaments. So that's always good to see. Very, very affordable service by all regards. So if you're interested and you need some help in Regulation D, sign up on the channel. And then from there, you can message me on Discord. You can join the Discord. And then from there, we'll plan out our session. So this way we can get you that squad that you need for either some rank ladder play, a tournament, or just something to fulfill whatever need that you have within competitive Pokemon. All right, we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.